Good morning, Fort Johnson. This is Jeff England of the Fort Johnson Public Affairs Office, and I am here today to talk about an important subject, suicide prevention. September is Suicide Prevention Month, and in this episode, we will discuss the importance of taking steps to prevent suicide in our communities and how it affects us all. Stay tuned. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you are listening to this podcast, I am Jeff England from the Fort Johnson Public Affairs Office, and I am in the podcast studio with today's guest, Lieutenant Colonel Ashley Maltese of the Behavioral Health Clinic at BJAC, or the Bain Jones Army Community Hospital, for all of those out there that don't know what BJAC stands for. It's almost like, does anybody not know what that means anymore? Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Colonel, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm living the dream, trying to get over some kind of little cold that I've got and be better and take care of business. It's like you got so much to do at work and then you have to take a day off because you're sick. It's like, but doctors don't get sick, right?
You know, sir, everybody needs to take care of themselves. It's a very important thing to maintain your resilience. So I'm glad to hear you had a day off.
Oh, actually, I had two. So one was for sick and one was to go to the doctor. So, September is around the corner, and unless it's already September when you're listening to this. But September is Suicide Prevention Month. Why is that so important?
Well, you know, I think suicide prevention is important because obviously any suicide is a tragedy. It is, even one is too many. We'll never eradicate suicide completely. I don't think anybody believes that's possible, but we sure do our best. And, you know, suicide prevention is a DoD priority year-round, but September provides us an opportunity where we can really highlight and focus the importance of self-care and connectedness with others as a way of fostering well-being and preventing suicide.
Yeah, it's amazing. The connectedness that you mentioned is more important than a lot of people think, because the people that have that thought, or the people that are having some problems and maybe even contemplating suicide are usually the unconnected ones, the ones that feel lonely and left out and disconnected from family and friends and stuff. So I understand what the connection point is. As a matter of fact, there's a unit on post that has tackled that problem with connection. And what they do is they take one day out of the week to go out and have breakfast together. So they split off into their little teams, their squads and their units, and they go out and they have breakfast together. And that way they have a chance to sit and eat and talk and connect. And, you know, you get to know each other a lot better. And when you do get to know somebody better, then it's a little easier to see when something is out of the norm. Something's not right with them. It's like, oh, what's bothering you? Well, how'd you know something was bothering me? Dude, I know you.
Yeah.
I know you. Remember that time when we were eating that bagel with cream cheese? Great, now I'm hungry.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think, you know, fostering that sort of connectedness, it also makes it more likely that somebody's going to reach out when they do have a challenge, because they do feel like they know you and they do feel like you care about them, versus just being, you know, another person in the crowd.
You got to have more in life than just wake up, go to work, go home. And there's a lot of people that just lock themselves up in their rooms and in their houses and stuff like that and play video games. And when I do that, I just get angry because I'm usually getting my butt kicked by some 12-year-old on the other side of the country. That just makes me even more angry. But you got to get out and you got to know people and you got to connect with people and talk and sit face to face with them. That's why I like my podcast. I get to meet all kinds of people, even people that are getting ready to retire in a couple years. So, are there any big plans for September, the Suicide Prevention Month?
Yeah, so actually on September 13th, it was changed from the 20th due to logistical issues, but on September 13th from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, Behavioral Health is going to be having an open house where we'll have a variety, you know, it's still in the works as far as who's going to be able to attend, but we're going to have a variety of different resources available so people can come meet, you know, face to face, ask questions about, you know, the services that they can get, and hopefully get some cool swag as well. So it should be a lot of fun.
Well, free gifts are always fun.
Absolutely.
So do you know what kind of stuff they might be showing off at open house?
I don't know. It's going to be a surprise.
Ooh, big surprise.
Yeah. Budget concerns, we'll see. But usually, people will bring things like the stress balls and, maybe some like Frisbees or, something like that, pens, different things. Yeah.
So if I was invited to go to the open house, what would I expect to see or learn?
So you can ask us about, like I said, services that we have. We can show you around so you can see, what our environment is like. I think Humana is going to be there so they can answer questions about like off-post resources. We are limited being a rural area. And we do have a pretty robust set of services here on post, which I'll get into here shortly. But yeah, a family advocacy program will be there, so you can ask questions about that. A lot of times people hear family advocacy and it's a scary thing. But the truth is they can provide parenting resources. They can provide marriage groups. There's something called Scream Free Marriage that I believe they're still doing here on post at the ACS Center. That can be a great resource for just learning how to better interact with your spouse, to prevent issues from arising, or to help repair some of those challenges that pop up in every relationship. So yeah, there's like I said, it's still kind of in the works as far as who's going to be able to show and what all they're going to be able to bring, but we'll have a variety of resources there.
Now, September marks fall. So we'll be getting into the winter soon and the holiday season, and that seems to be a very big time of year for down in the dumps and loneliness and thoughts that you shouldn't have, the intrusive thoughts. And so what should people be looking out for? What should people do to, knowing this time of year is the worst time of year for people that are separated from family and friends and all that stuff? What should people prepare themselves and try to do to counteract this, the loneliness?
Yeah, so, it's situation dependent, it's person dependent, right? So some people, for example, absolutely hate to be on video chat. It's just not personal enough, whereas some people enjoy that sort of thing. So being involved in festivities, if you're just distant from your family because you have to work or whatever, maybe even getting involved, over video so that you can still see what's going on, see, your nieces and nephews opening up gifts and things like that. Certainly getting involved with people who are also staying behind with you that are in your unit, or, neighbors, if you are invited over, try to take up the opportunity to connect with them, share, exchange gifts, exchange, foods, things like that. A lot of times too, just being aware of, what other people might be going through, because for some people, the holiday season is full of cheer. It's their favorite time, and so they'll come to work and they'll talk about, everything that they're going to do. But, for somebody else, that may be the time that, they're really missing a parent that they lost recently, or they're missing their kids because they just got a divorce. And so being sensitive to those things and, trying to reach out to those people and bring them into whatever it is that you may have going on, it can be very helpful.
Yeah, I could totally see how somebody else coming in being all bubbly and cheery, and you've got absolutely nothing of that. It's like, you're just making it worse.
Yeah.
It happens to me all the time. I hate, when I'm down in the dumps, I hate seeing cheery, happy people. It's like, if I'm miserable, you should be miserable too. But then again, when I'm happy and cheery, and then everyone should be happy and cheery, so...
But yeah, so the theme again this year for DoD Suicide Prevention Month is, again, in keeping with last year, connect to protect, support is within reach. And so suicide is a very complex issue, right? And there's no one thing, like we were talking about, every individual is unique. Everybody has different triggers. I mean, we know that there are some triggers that are kind of universal. Like when we look at suicides in the Department of Defense, we know that relationship problems, financial problems, and job difficulties are common themes that we see when we look at what's going on in the lives of those who attempt suicide or complete suicide. But nonetheless, one person can have 100 things go on in their life that's not pleasant, right? Or horrible, some might say. And they won't attempt suicide. They won't consider it. maybe they have deeper sense of optimism or spirituality, or there's a lot of different things that keep people from doing that. Somebody else might have one of those things go wrong, and they start to have, thoughts that they might be better off dead. And so because of all those different triggers, there's no one way to prevent every suicide, right? But kind of going back to this sense of connectedness, I think that the theme really highlights the fact that human connection is so important. And in fact, I was just reviewing some research on this the other day. There's a really in-depth article that came out recently. It really points to connectedness as being so important, not just to suicide prevention, but to just general well-being and health, actually. If you are lonely, if you consider yourself, so loneliness, when we think of isolation versus loneliness, isolation refers to not having enough access to socialization, social support, etc. Whereas loneliness is a sort of internal sense of unhappiness because you're lacking what you think is adequate social support.
Yeah, I've known people, and I've felt it myself, where I can feel alone or lonely in a room full of people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's not a happy feeling. That's for sure.
Yeah. And likewise, you can have some people that have one or two close friends that they talk to once a month, and they don't feel that sense of loneliness. And usually it's because of the quality of the connection with those other people. Or some people just have less need for social contact too. So I sort of lost my train of thought. But so what this article was saying was that actually, loneliness is worse than it's as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So if you think about that, like just your immune system, it has an effect on that. It has an effect on how likely people are to go to the doctor when they're feeling sick. It has an impact on, how much people are willing to take care of themselves every day, because social connection with others actually provides a sense of purpose and motivation, and of course, emotional support. So I think it's a tremendously important thing. So, I'd like to get into a little bit about the kind of the installation resources that we have on
what kind of resources do we have on post?
Yeah, so a lot of times people just think, just behavioral health. And so we do, and of course we will absolutely talk to anybody who comes through our door. We do have a new process that the DHA is going through to help us get people to the right level of care so that we can get everybody the help that they need, and not any one resource is kind of overworked. But friends, family, and battle buddies. I wanted to start there because of the focus on connectedness. It's so important to foster those relationships on a day-to-day basis. And even I have to be mindful of that, because I hate talking on the phone. I absolutely hate talking on the phone. And so for me to connect with people who are distant from me takes focused effort. And that's something that I'm trying to be more mindful of these days, just reaching out more. But your friends, family, and battle buddies, so the person to your left and your right in your unit, getting to know them, like you're talking about the breakfasts, but even having people over, on the weekend. Maybe it is to play video games, maybe it is to barbecue, but letting them know what's going on in your life, asking them what's going on in their life, and, being there as an ear for them to bend is hugely important. Also, leaders, so everybody from squad leader up to commander, they're all important for setting a stage in their unit for inclusion, right? So in school, if you can remember, there were usually some outcasts, people that were kind of ostracized.
Yeah, that was me.
But making sure that we're setting an environment in our sections and our units for inclusion of people, bringing them into the fold, making them feel welcome, making them feel part of the group, getting them whatever training they may need to get them up to speed in their jobs is hugely important. Also, leaders can be the first, kind of the gatekeepers to say, okay, well, you know what, these are the resources that we have available on the post, on installation for you. You're having some financial trouble. Well, let's get you over to the ACS Center so that we can get you some financial planning help. Relationship problems, let's get you over to the MFLEC for some marriage counseling, so on and so forth. So they can be very, very valuable. The Army Community Centers, I just mentioned them, they do have a variety of things that they offer: financial planning assistance, parenting classes, relationship sort of classes, a whole lot of different things. Every unit also should have a master resiliency trainer. So this came out of Penn State. It's a very robust program that was developed just for the Army. There's a lot of different skills that go with it, but I'll just keep it short. They teach resiliency skills. Hunt the good stuff is one that usually comes to mind.
Yeah, I have a mug that says that.
Yeah, and actually, these resiliency skills, if you practice them every day, your brain actually creates new neural pathways so that it becomes easier and easier over time to have a more optimistic mindset when you're experiencing adversity.
Yeah, a whole different look at things. Yeah. Well, I always looked at it this way, but now I look at it this way. Just slightly different.
Yeah, and it doesn't take the bad stuff away. It doesn't take away the stress or the challenges, but it helps you to better deal with those because you're not focusing just on what is wrong, but you're also looking at, but I still have these things, and these things can help me to get through this challenging time, right? The Ready and Resilient Performance Centers, they do a lot with performance improvement, performance enhancement. They also do some resiliency skill building. We have a program called Safe Talk. It's a 4-hour training that we're doing at newcomers, orientation for everyone. That's designed to help people identify signs of potential suicidality and helps them better understand how to, intervene with those individuals in kind of a caring, nurturing sort of way, a non-judgmental sort of way. The behavioral health consultants in primary care, these are not usually the people that first come to mind, but they are in primary care. So they do a lot of stuff with stress management, insomnia, medication compliance, or just general medical compliance issues. And, they're very great for short-term sorts of issues like that. We have marriage, family, life counselors on post as well. They're unit aligned. They provide counseling for usually things related to stress, relationships, job unhappiness, I guess you could say. They also can see people who have what we call a mild adjustment disorder. So they have some depression and anxiety symptoms, but it's not, unmanageable. It's not, they're not having suicidal thoughts or a lot of high acuity stuff going on. If they get those people, they usually deliver them to behavioral health for more in-depth care. Behavioral health, we are trying, as part of this targeted care, we're trying to focus our efforts more on people who do have that more high acuity. So they're very depressed. They have major depressive disorder. They have post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorders, things like that. Maybe they are experiencing suicidal thoughts. Maybe they've had to be hospitalized recently. We're really trying to focus on those folks so that we can see them more frequently and give them more intensive treatment. Other people can get to the other levels of care where they can still get their needs met, but they don't necessarily need to be seen by behavioral health. And then last but certainly not least, we have the chaplains. So we also have unit-aligned chaplains and ACS chaplains. And, they're great for, of course, spiritual counseling, but they also do some counseling similar to what you might get from one of the MFLEX. And I think they're usually found around the motor pool. So, if you're having difficulty and you want to find one of your chaplains, go to the motor pool, in the morning. And you can usually find them there handing out snacks or, popsicles in the heat and things like that. So they're also a great resource.
So the motor pool needs the chaplains the most.
In this heat, I would venture to say probably so.
Oh my, yes, it is very hot out there. Hot. And that's not good for health either. Let alone your mental health. I mean, our brains are 30% water. So we don't want to dehydrate.
Yeah, it's funny, as you mentioned that, I was just watching the news the other day and they were talking about how 76% of Americans say that they're more irritable and more moody with this current heat wave that we're having.
I could see that. I'm miserable when it's hot and humid outside. But then again, I've noticed that when in the winter, because there's not as much sunlight, it's darker more often, and it just seems bluer and darker or grayer. It puts me in a bad mood more often in the winter than in the summer. Summer is bright and airy and hot, so I might be irritable, but I'm in a good mood. I'm a happy irritable person. So it seems like there's a lot of opportunities being offered by Fort Johnson in general, let alone just BJAC. But you've got BJAC, you've got ACS, and all these other letters that I can throw out there. Army Community Service, Bain Jones, Army Community Hospital, the Behavioral Health Clinic. You've got RSO, which is the Religious Support Office, and they're going to be in next week. So I'll bring that up too. Okay, but I've always appreciated the chaplains because they have a sense of confidentiality to where you can open up a little bit more with them and not have them expected to go back to tell your story to your commanders and stuff like that. So
yeah, well, and I'd like to clarify too. With behavioral health, we rarely contact a commander. Of course, we have to do what we need to do to keep you safe. So if you have a plan to kill yourself, we have to intervene. And, but if you come in and you're talking about, I'm having some suicidal thoughts, that is not a given that we're going to pick up the phone and call your commander. And we let people know that. We go through all of that during the first session so we can clear up any concerns that they may have. So most everything that we talk about in behavioral health is going to be confidential. And if for some reason we need to contact your commander, usually we want you to be involved in that process. And, we only tell them the bare minimum of what they need to know to be able to meet whatever your safety concern or healthcare need is. And, if you want to go to an MFLEC and you're concerned about, confidentiality or a chaplain, MFLECs don't record anything. They don't put any notes in your medical record or anything like that.
Do they have access to my medical records?
No, they do not.
It's like, wait a minute, MFLEC's not a doctor?
Well, actually, some of them are. They're social workers, they're doctors, just like we are in behavioral health. It's just a different mission in a way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the MFLEC, Military Family Life Counselor. Oh, look at that. I can figure all of this out. That's what I do. I figure things out. I'm a figurer.
It's a good skill set to have.
It helps. It helps. That and Google. Google helps out a lot too. So the open house. We're going to have the open house over at BJAC in September. You said September 13th.
Yes.
And we've also got other opportunities going on. We've got people that you can come see over at ACS or the hospital or the chaplain. I mean, the resources here, for being such a small community are quite prolific. If somebody says, well, there's no one to talk to, it's like, you haven't opened your eyes, have you? It's like, you got to take a look. I mean, everyone is here to help. And BJAC is always available to have some kind of help available for all of our. If you're a soldier, BJAC has something for you if you need the help.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not sure where to go, because I did just overwhelm you with.
That was a lot of information.
But if you're not sure where to go, you can always just come up to behavioral health, and we have technicians that can, ask you generally what your situation is, and they can give you the resources that you need and direct you to the right place.
Are there certain places that if you go in there and ask them for a help and you're at the wrong place, is there certain places that immediately have to shut you down for, it's like, sorry, we can't talk to you about that, go to this place?
No, I don't think anybody would just shut you down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just make sure that you're going to the right place. And this is, and we're not talking just suicide prevention. We're talking all kinds of help that you might need or might even think you need or don't think you need.
Yeah.
If you're having a problem, you have to figure out why you're having the problem. And if your problem is the wrong or, bad thoughts, that immediately sends me to mental health. You guys don't call yourselves mental health, do you?
Behavioral health.
Behavioral health.
Yeah. And I wouldn't even say that suicidal thoughts are bad thoughts. I think that we're programmed to see them that way. They're very actually quite common. It's just a way that some people kind of cope with life, or with not life, but with dire situations when they find themselves there. And so, absolutely, if you're having thoughts like that, they're not pleasant thoughts. And we definitely want to get you help with dealing with whatever issue might be contributing. But know that just because somebody's having those thoughts, just listen to them openly, listen to them non-judgmentally if they bring those things up. Don't be afraid to ask them directly. If somebody says, oh, God, I'm just having such a rough time. It's the most stressful time in my life, and I just want to drive my car off the side of the road. They may or may not mean it when they say that, So I would say, don't just laugh it off and go about your day, but also don't sound alarms. Just be confident and just ask something like, wow, it sounds like you really are stressed out. And, yeah, it really sucks to be that stressed out. Do you really want to drive your car off the side of the road? Like, let's talk about this. And if they say yes, then, okay, well, what's contributing to that feeling? Like, let's talk about it. Because if you open up and you let them talk to you, then you're now another person that they can go to. Or they'll tell other people, well, you know what, I talked to Mr. England when I was going through this, and he helped me out, and that the word gets around. And so now other people are open to talking to you when they're going through an issue, and then you can help get them to the other, to the resource that they need. And I'd say too, especially if it's somebody that you have regular contact with, circle back around to them after you get them to that resource and say, hey, how did that work out for you? How are you doing today?
Yeah, the follow-up really helps.
Yeah, because that shows that you actually care about the person and the outcome that they're having, not just pawning them off on the resource, not just getting them out of your office.
Absolutely. It's like, yeah, now everybody's going to come to me to talk. It's like, oh, hi. What was that? No, actually, it turns out a lot of people talk to me and tell me stuff because they know I don't go around blabbing it afterward. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, great. So now I got my head full of all this stuff, and everyone, it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that brings up a point too. It is important that you have an outlet yourself. But like you said, people aren't going to come to you if you go back to the commander. And sometimes that might be necessary depending on the situation. Safety is always a priority. But not going around the unit and saying, oh, Billy Bob, he came to me and he said this, he's having a lot of problems.
Billy Bob does talk a lot.
But keep that to yourself and, just speak only to the resources that you need to get that person to about what's going on.
In certain situations, it doesn't take much to help out. I mean, in some situations, it might just be a ride. Just drive them over there. Well, I think you need to talk to this person. Let's go over there and give them a ride over there. I mean, it could be something that simple.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. And so for September, everyone should just keep an eye open for your friends and your coworkers and stuff like that, and partake in some of the opportunities that are afforded to you here at Fort Johnson, at BJAC, at ACS, and the chapel. Get involved in activities, get involved in clubs, and go out and do stuff. Don't just hole yourself up and sit in a dark room with nothing but the flicker of the television. I can really paint a picture sometimes.
I'm visualizing everything that you're saying.
Everything. But if you are having problems out there, help is available. Is it 811? What's the new...
988.
988.
Yeah, that's the
I knew there was an 8 in there.
Yeah, suicide hotline.
So if you are having problems, if you are having thoughts of suicide, dial 988 and get the help that you need. If you are just having any kind of problems at all, or maybe just need someone to talk to, there's also opportunity out there. Give your friends a call, give your family a call somebody, talk to somebody. Mm-hmm. Anybody will listen. Anybody that'll listen and help out. Well, Colonel, I appreciate you coming in. Lieutenant Colonel Ashley Maltese from the Behavioral Health Clinic at BJAC. Appreciate you coming in. I always enjoy it when we have people come in to visit me.
All right. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And I am Jeff England, and this has been the Fort Johnson podcast. Keep tuning in, and we will be having all kinds of interesting subjects to be broadcast out on our podcast every week. And we will be listening at you later.
That was easy.